Throughout automotive history, American manufacturers have produced some incredible vehicles that changed the industry forever. But today, we're looking at the other side of that story. These are the cars that became cautionary tales, the vehicles that damaged reputations and left thousands of owners frustrated and disappointed. Before we dive into this list, if you're passionate about automotive history and want to see more in-depth content about the cars that shaped America, hit that subscribe button right now. Let's get started. Number 12, 1975 to 1980 AMC Pacer. Starting our list at number 12, we have the AMC Pacer. The Pacer came standard with a 3.8-liter inline-six engine producing 100 horsepower. That's right, 100 horsepower to move a 3,000-pound car with the aerodynamics of a brick. 0 to 60 took nearly 14 seconds, and fuel economy hovered around 16 miles per gallon. Here's an interesting design choice. The passenger door was actually 4 inches longer than the driver's door, supposedly to make rear seat access easier. While innovative, it created manufacturing complexity and added cost. The massive greenhouse and fishbowl-like windows offered exceptional visibility, but they also turned the interior into a literal greenhouse on sunny days. Early models had inadequate air conditioning that couldn't handle all that glass. AMC sold about 280,000 Pacers before discontinuing it in 1980. Today, it's remembered more as a symbol of 1970s automotive excess than a practical vehicle. Number 11, 1971 to 1980 Chevrolet Vega. At number 11, the Chevrolet Vega. General Motors launched the Vega in 1971 as their answer to the growing import market. Motor Trend even named it Car of the Year. But within a few years, it became one of GM's most notorious failures. The Vega featured a 2.3-liter inline-four engine producing 90 horsepower. The problem wasn't the power output, it was the engine block itself. GM used an innovative aluminum block with a silicon-etched bore, but this technology wasn't ready for production. The engine had a tendency to overheat, causing the cylinder walls to warp. This led to excessive oil consumption and catastrophic engine failure, often before the car reached 50,000 miles. Owners watched blue smoke pour from their exhaust pipes as their engines destroyed themselves. The Vega sold well initially, with over 2 million units produced during its production run. But as word spread about the reliability problems, resale values collapsed. 3-year-old Vegas were nearly worthless. Number 10, 1982 to 1988 Cadillac Cimarron. Number 10 brings us the Cadillac Cimarron. In 1982, Cadillac tried to compete in the compact luxury market by taking a Chevrolet Cavalier, adding some leather and wood trim, and charging nearly double the price. The result damaged Cadillac's reputation for years. The Cimarron launched with a weak 1.8-liter four-cylinder engine producing just 88 horsepower. Later models received a 2.0 with 86 horsepower, and finally a 2.8 V6 with 125 horsepower. But by then, the damage was done. The base price was around $12,000, nearly double what a Cavalier cost, yet buyers got essentially the same car with slightly better interior trim. The mechanical components, platform, and basic structure were identical. Automotive journalists immediately called out the Cimarron for what it was: badge engineering at its worst. The car became the poster child for everything wrong with General Motors in the 1980s. Number 9, 1984 to 1988 Pontiac Fiero. Pontiac's mid-engine sports car looked promising with its innovative design and affordable price point, but it became infamous for a problem no car should ever have: catching fire. The base model came with a 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine producing 92 horsepower, barely adequate for a sports car. The optional 2.8-liter V6 with 140 horsepower was better, but by the time it arrived, the Fiero's reputation was already destroyed. Early models had serious engine cooling problems that led to engine fires. The fires were caused by inadequate cooling systems and connecting rods that would break and puncture the oil pan, spraying oil onto hot exhaust components. General Motors issued recalls to address the fire risk, but the damage was done. News coverage of Fieros burning on the roadside killed sales almost overnight. 8. 1986 to 1987 Yugo GV. This Yugoslavian import became synonymous with cheap, unreliable cars. Priced at just $3,990, it was the least expensive new car in America. But buyers quickly learned they got exactly what they paid for. The Yugo featured a 1.1-liter four-cylinder engine producing 55 horsepower. This made the car dangerously slow, especially on highways where merging and passing required planning measured in minutes, not seconds. Build quality was shockingly poor. Doors didn't close properly, windows would fall into the door panels, and electrical systems failed regularly. The fit and finish looked like something from decades earlier. The carburetor was constantly problematic, causing stalling and rough running. The cooling system was inadequate, leading to overheating in warm weather. The manual transmission felt crude, and the clutch wore out quickly. 7. 1997 to 2003 Ford F-150. At number 7, we have a controversial choice, the 10th generation Ford F-150. The F-150 is an American icon and typically a solid truck. But this particular generation suffered from catastrophic problems that cost Ford billions and damaged their reputation for truck reliability. Engine options included a 4.2-liter V6 with 205 horsepower, a 4.6-liter V8 with 220 horsepower, and a 5.4-liter V8 with 260 horsepower. The 5.4-liter Triton V8 became infamous for spark plug problems. The 5.4-liter engine had a design flaw where spark plugs would seize in the cylinder heads. When mechanics tried to remove them, the plugs would break off, requiring expensive repairs involving special extraction tools or even cylinder head replacement. This affected hundreds of thousands of trucks. Rust was a major problem, especially on trucks used in snow states. Number 6. 2003-2011 Saturn Ion. Saturn built its reputation on affordable, reliable, no-haggle cars with plastic body panels that resisted dents. The Ion kept the plastic panels but abandoned everything else that made Saturn special. The base Ion came with a 2.2-liter four-cylinder producing 140 horsepower, while the sportier Redline version got a 2.0-liter supercharged engine with 205 horsepower. Both were paired with either a manual transmission or a problematic CVT automatic. The interior was absolutely bizarre. Saturn mounted the gauge cluster in the center of the dashboard instead of behind the steering wheel. This was supposed to be innovative, but just proved distracting and awkward. Build quality was atrocious. The doors felt flimsy, electrical problems were rampant, and the cheap plastic interior creaked and rattled constantly. The CVT transmission was notoriously unreliable, often failing before 100,000 miles. The suspension was harsh, the steering was numb, and the overall driving experience was completely forgettable. Number 5. 2001 to 2005 Pontiac Aztek. When General Motors launched the Aztek in 2001, they marketed it as a versatile crossover for adventurous young buyers. What they delivered was a vehicle that looked like it was designed by 3 different teams who never talked to each other. The Aztek came with a 3.4-liter V6 engine producing 185 horsepower, paired with either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Performance was adequate, but nothing special, with the vehicle weighing around 3,800 pounds. But the real problem was the styling. The front end featured awkward cladding and mismatched angles that made it look unfinished. The two-tone plastic body panels aged poorly and often faded to different colors. Number 4. 1999 to 2005 Dodge Durango. The Durango was Dodge's entry into the popular midsize SUV market. Built on a truck platform, it offered 3 rows of seating and available V8 power. But beneath the tough exterior lurked serious problems. Engine options included a 3.9-liter V6 with 175 horsepower, a 4.7-liter V8 with 235 horsepower, and a 5.9-liter V8 with 250 horsepower. The V8s provided decent power, but fuel economy was atrocious at around 12 to 14 miles per gallon combined. The Durango suffered from chronic reliability problems. The dashboard would crack and warp within just a few years. The automatic transmission was notoriously problematic, often failing before 100,000 miles, with repair costs exceeding $2,000. Number 3. 2007 to 2010 Chrysler Sebring. Chrysler positioned the Sebring as an affordable family sedan and a popular rental car choice. But affordability came at the cost of quality, refinement, and basic competence. The Sebring offered 3 engine options: a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder with 173 horsepower, a 2.7-liter V6 with 189 horsepower, and a 3.5-liter V6 with 235 horsepower. Even with the largest engine, the car felt sluggish and unrefined. The interior was absolutely terrible. Cheap, hard plastics everywhere. The dashboard looked like it cost $5 to manufacture. Panel gaps were inconsistent and everything rattled. The seats provided minimal comfort, and the overall build quality felt like a car from the 1990s, not 2007. This was particularly embarrassing given the competition from Honda and Toyota. Production ended in 2010 and nobody mourned its passing. The Sebring represented everything wrong with Chrysler during this era. Number 2. 2007 to 2017 Jeep Compass. At number 2, we have the first-generation Jeep Compass. Jeep built its reputation on rugged, capable off-road vehicles. The Compass was a front-wheel drive crossover with pretend Jeep styling and virtually no off-road capability. It was a Jeep in name only. The Compass came with a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder engine producing just 158 horsepower, or a 2.4-liter with 172 horsepower. For a vehicle weighing over 3,400 pounds, this meant painfully slow acceleration. 0 to 60 took over 10 seconds. The interior was absolutely horrible. Cheap, hard plastics everywhere. The dashboard looked like a toy. The seats were uncomfortable and provided no support. The materials felt like they would disintegrate if you looked at them too hard. Electrical problems were constant, with dashboard warning lights illuminating for mysterious reasons. The wireless control module would malfunction, preventing the vehicle from starting. Build quality was atrocious. Panels didn't line up properly, everything rattled and squeaked. The CVT transmission was unreliable and made horrible whining noises. Number 1, 1971 to 1978 Ford Pinto. Ford introduced the Pinto in 1971 to compete with small imports. It featured a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder engine producing 75 horsepower, connected to either a 4-speed manual or 3-speed automatic transmission. The Pinto was cheap, fuel-efficient, and initially popular. Ford sold hundreds of thousands per year. But it had a deadly flaw. The fuel tank was positioned behind the rear axle with minimal protection. In rear-end collisions, even at relatively low speeds, the tank could rupture and ignite. Ford eventually recalled 1.5 million Pintos in 1978 to add protective shields around the fuel tank, but the damage was done. The Pinto wasn't just a bad car, it was a vehicle with a known deadly defect that the manufacturer chose not to fix for financial reasons. That calculated decision to prioritize profit over human life is why the Ford Pinto is the worst car in U.S. history.